Alright, hello everybody. Welcome back to SpinoCast, a very last minute episode. I just wanted to get this out there because I just watched Prehistoric Planet episode 1 last night at like 1 a.m. Destin from Edge, who we had on the last episode, ended up messaging me when I was on with my friends, and he's like, it's out, and I'm like, I thought it was coming out at like 3 a.m. from what I heard, and I looked, sure enough it was there. We stopped in our tracks and all of us watched it, and it was magical to say the least. But today I just kind of want to scrub through the episode and just briefly chat about things because I'm just so excited about this. I cannot get it out of my mind this morning, and I'm going to do this with every episode if I could keep up with it this week. So let's jump into things, and keep in mind from this point on, spoilers. Spoilers. If you haven't gotten a chance to watch it, please give this series the support that you can. Spoiler alert, this is the best dinosaur documentary ever made, bar none, as far as accuracy and quality of presentation and everything. It is incredible, and I've only seen one episode, of course, so please go support it. Do not pirate this. I've seen people talking about, like, saying, oh, I don't want to make an Apple TV account, so I'm just going to pirate it. No, please show your support to it. Make an Apple TV account. You get a free week, and then after you watch all 5 episodes, you can just cancel it. So please do that. Anyways, let's move on. So it opens up with a beautiful intro here, and there's a lot of cool stuff they show off. But I'm not going to focus on any of the scenes they show in the intro, just because we'll get to that when the episode actually comes out. The episode opens up with the poster child for the series, with the swimming T-Rex and chicks. And the thing I love about this scene is, in the trailer I was like, oh, this is such a cool idea. One thing I was wondering, though, is I'm like, why did the T-Rex kind of, put its head down, and why is it looking underwater with its eyes open? I mean, it wasn't anything like a big deal. I was just sort of curious. And sure enough, in this sequence, it's because a Mosasaurus is hunting them, or a Mosasaur of some kind. And just this sequence was so tension-filled to kick off the series. The music cues, the cinematography was absolutely gorgeous. And it ends with one of the chicks getting snatched. And what I love about the presentation is there's no grand, like, oh, you have to feel bad for the animal kind of thing. The baby dinosaur just got eaten. It just felt like such a natural moment in nature where you just see the baby swimming, then all of a sudden, ploop, it's gone. Just got dragged underwater, and that's the extent of it. And the T-Rex family moves on. It felt real, and it felt like something you'd see in one of these documentaries, and it even felt more grounded than some stuff you'd even see in stuff like Planet Earth or Blue Planet, for example, because oftentimes they have a scene where it's like, all right, we're putting the sad piano music over this now, and we're going to watch this baby animal get killed, but, in nature, that's not the way these things happen, and I do really appreciate that it was just really quick, and they cut away from it, and that was that. And you still felt bad for the baby T-Rex, mainly just because it was gone. It didn't get the attention. It wasn't like the show was forcing you to feel bad for it, if that makes sense. It was just like, the T-Rex baby is gone, and that's it. So that scene was great. We have these giant turtles, which I guess they were Archelon when they first showed up, but they didn't have a name drop for it, so I'm not sure. The way the T-Rex walks in this episode was great, because we haven't seen it walk in any of the trailers or anything, and that was something myself and my friends were all nerding about, outside of just the general visual quality of this entire production, because it's some of the best CGI I've ever seen, bar none. Never mind just CGI for dinosaur documentaries, it is completely and utterly knocked out of the park. Just anything that's ever been made in this regard. But the CGI is just so impressive. Like, I was just so convinced I'm watching real animals at this point. And the T-Rex has this scene here where it flips over a giant turtle on the beach, and I just love the energy that the T-Rexes have. I mean, it's T-Rex. Every documentary and every form of media always has a scene where it's like, oh, it's the king of the dinosaurs. It's got to kill everything that it sees. And judging by the trailer where we see it standing over the dead Triceratops, I'm going to assume that we're going to see it kill a Triceratops or something at some point. Which obviously they were predators, and that makes sense, but I just love showing the softer side to these creatures because they were just animals. And they were beautiful for what they were. They don't need to be killing things constantly. They were just so cool for what they are. And this show is something that's finally embracing that. And just seeing it walk and shift its weight around and seeing the chicks dart in and out between its legs. And one thing that I love too is even though this thing, the T-Rex is so big, it flips over this giant turtle on the beach to feed on the soft underbits. And you see it brace its legs in the sand, and its feet are kind of sliding and making imprints in the sand as it's putting all of its muscle and force into flipping this giant reptile over to feed on its underside. And I just love that you can just see, like, even though this thing is huge, everything was huge back then kind of thing. And it was just, it was great. It was just showing a little struggle. The visuals on the baby T-Rex are absolutely stunning. One of my favorite shots in the show is the little baby riding on the back of the giant turtle that's going down to the beach. That was great. Most people have already seen stuff from this sequence in the scene that they released with the baby T-Rex. But funnily enough, the last frame of that scene with the mother, the father T-Rex, Hank, standing on the beach, that scene was not in this, which is interesting. So, okay, whatever. But I do like how they kind of repurposed those scenes to kind of fake us out and show us something that wasn't actually in the show, if that was the intention behind it, or if they just ended up changing everything. I assume that they faked us out because that was only like, a month ago when we saw that? So, wasn't that long ago. Anyway, then we move on to potentially, like, without doubt, my favorite part of the whole show, the whole show so far, this whole episode. I'm just kind of stumbling over myself because I'm still just so high off of this show. I'm so excited about it. But we get shown a pterosaur colony of Tethedraco, I think David Attenborough says, and just this like, it looks like a colony of seabirds, which is so cool with all of them just in this massive group just sitting around each other. And we see the male in the background. Is that well these are the Tethedraco. I think, yeah, the male in the back is that's the Barbarodactylus, right? Because later on in the episode it's the Barbarodactylus. So I think there's two species here. I need to go back and rewatch it already. But yeah, and then we see the baby walking around, and then already it has such a small cameo in this episode, but one of my favorite prehistoric animals, one of my new favorite pterosaurs, I should rephrase, at the very least, already, just for its presence and the way it was handled, is Phosphatodraco, the way they showed it. It was barely in this episode. It had a couple scenes, but just the first scene revealing its head, the way it slowly turns its head, it looks so intimidating. It looks like a huge stork. And then you see it walking as the camera pans up, and the musical cue for this thing is it's reserved, but it's so intimidating. And I just absolutely adore it. And I love the behavior of it as well. Like, it's this different species that's sort of just strutting confidently around this group of pterosaurs and is looking for little chicks to pick out and feed upon. And it just feels so natural. I absolutely adore it. And we cut away briefly from that after that's set up to a bunch of baby pterosaurs hatching. I forget the name of them and that's another thing I got to touch on briefly. I love that there are so many creatures in this first episode alone. They're willing to launch the show with this, which shows their dedication to the science and everything, with so many creatures that even I, a connoisseur of dinosaurs for my entire life for the most part, and prehistoric creatures, have never heard of in any way, shape, or form. I've heard Phosphatodraco named dropped before. I think I've heard Tethys Draco name dropped before. Maybe I might be thinking of Tethys Hadros though. But it's just yeah, it's just so refreshing just seeing all of these new creatures get the spotlight, like even more so than the T-Rex, which sort of started the show, which I thought was appropriate. You know, it's T-Rex, and just seeing a proper T-Rex was awesome. And we also, the only other, like, one that everyone has heard of before that's in this episode is probably just the Mosasaurus. Everything else is really obscure and really cool. Anyway, we get this awesome hatching scenes, which is what I'm assuming has some practical effects going on here with the hatchling pterosaurs. And the way they hatch is just great. The way they move, they have the little jittery, unstable movements of like a bird chick when they first hatch. And it just looks incredible. It's so tangible. Like, convince me otherwise that I'm watching, you know, that I'm not watching real prehistoric animals. That's how good the CG looks in this show. We get this beautiful scene that got me teared up the first time I saw it, of all of the babies taking off from the first time and heading towards the sanctuary of the forest beyond the cliffside on the ocean. And the male Barbarodactylus ends up looking at this as an opportunity to get some snacks. So, oh my gosh, my PC, hold on a second. Stop it. My PC was buzzing. I hate that. Sorry. So, the Barbarodactylus sees this opportunity and is like, I'm going to go in and get a snack. So, even though they're other pterosaurs, he's like, this is free food, man. I'm going in for it. And just like, it's almost like a prehistoric dogfight scene. The way this was filmed, I loved how the camera was never quite centered for most of the time on the action. It was like the cameraman was struggling to keep up with what was going on, and it feels so Planet Earth in that regard for a lot of the action sequences in this show, which I adore. And one of my favorite shots is when the Barbarodactylus folds its wings in, and you just hear like the wings folding in as it goes into a dive bomb after the chicks. And it was so cool. It was making me nerd out. And one of my other favorite scenes too is just there's this scene where you see the silhouette of one of the babies, and then behind it, the Barbarodactylus just comes in a hazy silhouette, just engulfing it, and it looks so cool. And then we get one of the babies crash landing onto the beach as well, and the Phosphotodracos eats it. I love the sound of the beak clashing together as it's swallowing the baby. It just sounds like what the beaks would have sounded like two huge wooden planks just clashing together. So that was making me nerd out. I really adore that. The colors on the Phosphotodraco are really cool as well. I love the slight hint of color. And one thing that I love too is this just shows their dedication to the show. We get one scene in this episode, where they made an entirely new model for the adult baby pterosaurs, which their name escapes me. And we see them fly by at the end of their sequence in the background. And they're completely out of focus. They're super far away. They're behind trees in harsh sunlight. And we could just make out that they're white with like blue markings on their face. But the fact that they made full models of those just for that like 2-second scene shows their dedication to this. And I am so impressed by that. I absolutely love that. Anyways, then we move on to the Tyrannosaurs, the Plesiosaur sequence, and showing them eating stones and everything. I loved, my friend Aiden brought up a great point with these guys, is the fact that a lot of other paleo documentaries, Plesiosaurs tend to get the short end of the stick. Like, they sort of get shown as these lumbering sauropods of the ocean, where they're just really slow and sort of, you know, I don't know if I'd say they were depicted as graceful even. They're just really slow and kind of lumbering in the background, sticking their heads in a shoal of fish once in a while and getting like a 2-second cameo, like in Sea Monsters, a prehistoric adventure from National Geographic, where they're just like, this is a Styxosaurus, it uses its head to blah blah blah, and then you never see it again, except for a background cameo at the end of the show or whatever. But I really love how the Plesiosaurs were a focus of this episode, and they were shown as sort of like a coordinated pod of dolphin-like animals almost, which I really like in their behavior. And The sequence, they were going after stones to help with their digestion, which I really thought was cool. We got a lot of cool close-ups on their heads. Their heads look really cool. I love the designs. And the visuals underwater are absolutely beautiful as well. And after that, we cut away to a scene with the Mosasaurus, which he calls it Hoffman's Mosasaur, which I'm 99% sure it's Mosasaurus hoffmanni based on that. And we get this awesome build up to the scene where there's a little fish, and you could tell it's a CGI fish. Really good CGI fish, but you could tell it's CGI, you know? And it's the Mosasaurus comes in this awesome, like, through a shoal of fish. It just comes in this awesome presentation and opens its mouth, and you're like, oh no, something's going to happen to this little fish, man. It's going to get eaten or something. But then we're sitting there thinking about it, and my friend Aiden was right, which I didn't pick up on the first time I watched it. But he goes, why would a mosasaur go after it? He goes, I knew something weird was going to happen, because why would a mosasaur of this size go after such a small little fish so intensely? And it drifts in, lands on the rock, and stops as the fish goes inside of its mouth and starts cleaning it. And a bunch of other creatures like shrimp and other fish are cleaning the dead, shedded skin off of this mosasaur and cleaning it up. And it's so cool. It makes sense. And it looks dope. And it's just the coolest idea. It's not just showing something killing everything in the ocean, but it's just showing it chilling and just being this majestic spectacle in nature, which I love. I just love how these, Planet Earth and Blue Planet series just focus on different unique behaviors like this, and the fact that they were willing to write these scenes for a prehistoric show just makes me so happy, because it's one thing if you're going out in nature and filming behavior like this and then deciding to show it in your show. But it's another thing to write prehistoric animals doing these things. And it's just amazing. And I love too, Mosasaurus is so adorable, the way he rolls on his back and lets them clean his belly and stuff. I love it. And then he gets jump scared by another rival male Mosasaurus, and they have a little bit of a fight. And one thing I love about this sequence that my friends were mentioning as well is the male mosasaur, where he gets a big gulp of breath and he goes down, and his intent is not to kill the other mosasaurus rival on his own, but he drags it down and tries to drown it, which I think is really, really, cool and natural. Once again, it's just, it feels like, why would I waste my energy and resources on this when I'm the bigger, stronger one and I'm just going to try to drown this thing? And one thing too that was really cool is when it brings it down deep enough, they get engulfed in a cloud of sand and dust or whatever underwater, so you can't see them. And the other rival male mosasaur doesn't die. It escapes. You see it scuffling off to the side afterwards, which I love, because in nature, if an animal is on the verge of death, it doesn't fight to the death. Most of the time. It tries to escape with its life, because that's the most valuable thing in that situation. It's not going to have a heroic last moment stand like a lot of dinosaurs do in media, where it's like, oh, I'm going to be the underdog and fight even though I die kind of thing. I'm like, no. It's nature, man. It's real life. If you're going to die, you're escaping with your life. And I love that they showed that. And the other Mosasaurus just drifts up. Once again, we don't see the outcome of the fight, which I love. Feels natural. Feels like there's real people filming this and they just happen to not catch it on camera. We just see the other one escaping, and we see the other Mosasaurus coming up to the surface. That was an awesome sequence. And let me scroll ahead here. Oh, before we get off of the Mosasaurus sequence here, the Mosasaurus gaping when it goes out of the water like a crocodilian is so cool. I just love that, showing it in taking air like that. I just think that's a dope little thing. It also has the forked tongue and really cool colors, which I love the colors on them, which I think is really dope. And then we move into, this was unexpected, the ammonite courtship scene at night with bioluminescent ammonites. How has nobody thought of this? Excuse me, indigestion. I just woke up and I haven't eaten anything or anything. I'm like burping up a storm. My stomach is acting up a bit, but I don't care. I'm powering through this for you guys. And for myself, I'm so excited to talk about all this. Bioluminescent ammonites. How has nobody thought of this? Like, I've never seen this before, and when I first saw the scene of this, they had a scene of one of these in the intro, and that's one of the things I was freaking out about the most, because I'm like, this is so cool! It makes sense that they could have had this, they could have behaved like this, and the fact that they showed a whole scene dedicated to ammonites alone was so dope, because ammonites are just a staple of prehistory. Like, they're one of the most common fossils that we have in the world, and getting a whole scene dedicated to them with this awesome idea that is just in line with so many modern cephalopods and such is really cool. And I love the style of the courtship display they had between the male and female, where they intertwine their tentacles and have the light patterns sync up with each other as part of the ritual. That was so awesome. And yeah, absolutely gorgeous visually, the entire scene with the rippling lights in the water, and just the reality check as well, that just reminds you of so many things like this in nature, where a lot of animals mate and then they die afterwards, or yeah, they after they spawned and released their eggs, they had this scene which was almost gut-wrenching after seeing this beautiful display underwater, where all of these dead ammonites are just just washing up on the shore, with all of, like, they looked like practical effects just washing up on the shoreline, and it was just a really cool, like, reality check once again with nature. We had a scene too, with Walking with Dinosaur's son. Come on, had to be a reference, the way it came up and went by. It was so Walking with Dinosaurs, this way the sun came by. And I'm not going to put up any visuals for copyright reasons in this. I'm just going to talk about it, so if you watch the episode, you'll know what I'm talking about. And the last sequence we cut back to the Tyrannosaurus, and we have them, we have a slow female and her calf that are lagging behind their pod, or a group or whatever, and a Mosasaur, a different species, whose name escapes me. It begins with a K or a C or something. I've never heard of it before. Tries going after them because the mother is lagging behind, and you're like, oh, why is she being so slow? And I love that the baby is being defensive of the parent and sort of goes in to try to distract the Mosasaur, and the other pod turns around and starts to is really agile and starts to distract it. And another thing my friend Aiden brought up, which was a great point, and it was displayed awesomely in this scene, was there have been a lot of studies comparing Mosasaur and Plesiosaur body plans, and a lot of people are concluding that the Plesiosaur body plan would likely have been faster and just more maneuverable underwater with the 4 larger flippers. And Mosasaur's bodies were sort of designed for quick bursts of speed that are sort of towards their target. With their massive muscular tails. And I love this scene, how it displayed the super agile, which was almost jarring because you've never seen something with plesiosaurs like this before, because they're big animals, but they were super agile, darting around and distracting this Mosasaur. And the Mosasaur had a quick dart of speed forward and then had to sort of pivot itself and turn around a little bit slower and then dart forward again after the other plesiosaurs. And I love how they handled that, just to show the disparity in the body styles there between the animals. Anyway, the Mosasaur gets driven off, and we figure out the reason that the female was slow is because she was giving birth. And that's one of my favorite visual scenes of the entire all the underwater sequences in this show, is the baby Tyrannosaurus getting birthed and unfolding. And just the scene of the mother wrapping its neck, like, kind of around it, was just so elegant and beautiful. And both of them go up for a gulp of fresh air, and that's pretty much it. That's where the episode ends, and then we get a teaser for the next episode. But I'm not going to bother talking about that because we'll talk about that once the episode actually comes out. Yeah, it's perfection. It's borderline perfection. I'm sure if I go back, there are nitpicky things because nothing is perfect, of course, but it's just so nice just to see anything dinosaur related and come out of it struggling to find anything wrong with it scientifically. And it's so satisfying. And not only is this thing have everything anatomically correct, but just visually, it is one of the most beautiful pieces of media I've ever seen as far as the CGI goes and everything. And the cinematography is absolutely stunning. And David Attenborough's presentation and just voice on top of everything just seals the deal that this is such a legit presentation and just brings the biggest smile to my face because I'm like, this is it. Dinosaurs are real, and we've got David Attenborough here to tell us that they're real, man, and to show the general public, hopefully, what these animals were actually like, because they are incredible. And this show feels like kind of a victory for me in a way personally, and I'm sure it does to a lot of other people. I'm getting a little choked up here just talking about it, actually. But, you know, dinosaurs are just the best. They're just the best. They just captured my imagination and so many other people's imaginations. Sorry, guys, I'm a little choked up. Just seeing people care about something that you're this passionate about is just, it's the best feeling in the world. And not only did they care this much, but they completely knocked it out of the park. And I've only seen one episode of this show so far, but I cannot wait to see the rest. I'm staying up till midnight tonight to watch the next one with my friends. And tomorrow, if I have time, which I assume I will do another little breakdown podcast thing on that for you guys. All right. I'm hungry. I'm going to go eat something now. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And thank you for listening. If you listened all the way to this point, comment down below saying Phosphato Draco is bae. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I'll catch you all in my next video. So take care, and bye-bye.